Could I just say, Minister, that all over Cork City and County and the region there is enormous concern about the situation pertaining to Cork Airport, and this recent announcement in terms of Aer Lingus region is a further blow to the situation at the airport. There has been a serious decline in the number of flights to and from Cork, and this obviously has a negative impact on the tourist industry and on the economic and industrial future for the region. Over the years, over recent years, Cork Airport's traffic or passenger numbers has fallen by about 40%, which is quite dramatic. Last year alone saw a reduction of 6.6% in passengers to the airport, and next year the airport authorities are projecting a 5% decline. Action is required, Minister, because 215, as I said, will be worse. Aer Lingus and Ryanair have both announced the cancellation of routes and the reduction of further flights to continental Europe, including the ending of the Cork-Lisbon, Cork-Nice and Cork-Brussels routes. Fundamentally, Taoiseach, passenger numbers are now at 2 million. And you can't blame it on the downturn exclusively. You can't blame it on the motorway, as some do, or the improvements there. I think you suggested that, Minister, recently. Fundamentally, Shannon has gone up 18.7% passenger numbers. Dublin has gone up by 6.5%. And I think you can trace this back to the decision in 2012. I don't think Cork is operating, in fact I'm certain Cork is not operating on a level playing pitch. The reconstitution of Shannon Airport in a separate state company with Shannon Development and the rental revenues that flow from Shannon Development has put Shannon in a very strong competitive position, and good luck to Shannon in that regard. But essentially, and its debt burden has been written off, it's a 100 million debt burden as well. So essentially it's in a position to offer far better prices to airlines than Cork can. And this is not something that I'm saying. Officials of the DEA are saying this, Minister. And in fact, what worried me when I met officials of the DEA at the time, they were reluctant to go public because they were fearful of political repercussions. And the DEA seemed to have been quite muted until relatively recently on this particular issue. And we know the legislation that was brought in at the time, you abolished the Cork Airport Authority, although the legislation does allow for it to be re-established. Essentially, it's part of the DEA structure now. It's very clear that it lacks a strong independent advocate in terms of the airport itself. It's very much subservient to the DEA's diktat. And the airport, in the context of the Booz report, the Booz Allen report, and the context of legislation, Cork Airport was never really given any new lease of life by the government, and it's at a severe disadvantage. The government directly intervened, and I've no doubt Minister Noonan was quite influential in this in terms of the Shannon situation, and they can offer deals to Ryanair that Cork can't. And the bottom line is that's fine, except it doesn't add any value to the country. And about 100,000 passengers that were going through Cork are now going through Shannon. That's the bottom line, because of the deals that can be offered. And that's what the DEA officials are saying behind the scenes. They're very clear about it, they're very straightforward about it, that's what they're saying. And so therefore, the pitch has to be levelled somehow, Minister, in terms of facilitating growth in Cork, because there's no way that they can prevent the diversion of services through incentive pricing that's going on. And Ryanair in particular, as a low-cost airline, has diverted a lot of its traffic to the airport down the road, essentially. And there's no doubt that substantial discounts, success fees, marketing payments are all there as a factor in that change. And I think it's a race to the bottom model, but it's one that I think the government needs to reflect on and change tack in terms of ensuring a viable long-term future for Cork Airport. And it seems to me that the one step I would recommend to the ministers at the airport authority should be re-established. The Cork Airport Board should be re-established. At least that would allow for a strong board that would advocate for Cork Airport in particular, and that you wouldn't have the sense that is very strong now in the region that there's certain issues are being muted because of the DEA's relationship with the department and indeed with its political masters, that they're not allowed to raise any awkward questions, essentially, and they don't want to publicly articulate awkward questions. Route Development Fund, Minister, I think is essential for Cork Airport, or a regional support fund in terms of tourism activities in the region. But something has to happen, Minister, to redress the imbalance that's currently there between the three airports. The route development funds have been successful in the past in developing regional airports, increasing connectivity elsewhere, including Scotland, Northern Ireland, Wales and Northern England. And I think the government would have to seriously look at ways and means of redressing this, because otherwise the situation will continue to decline. It's not sustainable in the current framework that operates across the three state airports. So a route development fund, Minister, and an independent authority.
Thanks, Deputy Minister.
Thank you, Micheál. I want to thank Deputy Martin for raising this matter. I'm very much aware of the importance of this matter, and the interest that he has in this is also shared with his constituency colleagues, Minister Coveney and Deputy Jerry Buttimer, and also Deputy Kieran Lynch. Before I speak about the importance of Cork Airport and our plans for it, I do want to say that the market for air services in the European Union is fully liberalised, and any European registered aircraft is free to operate any service between any 2 points in the European Union. It is therefore a matter for airlines, including Aer Lingus Regional or Stobart Air, to decide what routes they will service based on their own commercial judgments. I play no role in those decisions. My understanding is that while Stobart will be reducing frequency on some routes, they are also increasing capacity on others, or resuming summer services as all airlines do over the year, depending on seasonality and passenger demand. In particular, the airline will recommence its twice-weekly summer services to Jersey and Rennes from Cork in early June. This government is very conscious of the importance of Cork Airport. It's the second largest airport in our country and vital for business and tourism in the Cork region. With all of the focus and discussion about declining passenger numbers, let us also not forget it still had more than 2.1 million passengers last year and has 42 scheduled routes and offers passengers excellent connectivity into 3 major European hub airports. The airport has excellent passenger facility and provides award-winning customer services. Notwithstanding all of that, I am also very aware of and concerned about the decline in passenger numbers at the airport. Since becoming Minister for Transport, I have met with all the stakeholders in relation to Cork Airport on a number of occasions and have engaged extensively with government bodies in the matter. The DAA and Cork Airport management are working hard to stabilise passenger numbers and return Cork Airport to growth in the short to medium term. The DAA is actively engaged with existing airline customers, including Stobart, and potential new entrants to help expand traffic at the airport and generate new services. It is crucial that existing and new services are therefore supported by the people in Cork and the wider catchment area to ensure their sustainability. I do believe there is also opportunities to grow incoming tourists into the Cork region, particularly in view of the fact that only 37% of Cork Airport passengers are inbound, which is quite low by international standards. I have engaged with Tourism Ireland, which has undertaken significant cooperative marketing activity with carriers serving the Cork Airport to promote flights to Cork and boost travel to wider regions. East Cork will also be promoted as part of the new tourism proposition for the south and east of Ireland, Ireland's ancient east, and Cork City and Airport now has the opportunity to act as a gateway to both the ancient east concept and the Wild Atlantic Way concept. Ultimately, creating new services and growing inbound tourism depends not just on the availability of competitive access, but also on ensuring that potential visitors have a reason to visit. I'd urge everybody to work together to develop these products in the Munster region, not just around the airport, as the stakeholders along with the airport and the tourism agencies will then be better able to pursue every opportunity to develop and highlight those products. It's only by working together that the objective of ensuring a sustainable airport able to grow in the future can be achieved for the benefit of the region, the city and county.
Now, Deputy Martin, 2 minutes.
2 minutes. Yeah. Thank you very much, Cathaoirleach. I'm very disappointed with the Minister's response because it's a holding response and it doesn't deal with the core issue. There are 3 state airports and one just has to look at the structure to see the issue. And Cork Airport is at a competitive disadvantage because of the way the government has structured the 3 airports in terms of governance and in terms of supports to the respective airports. Essentially, the reorganisation of Shannon with Shannon Development and the rental revenues and all of that, there's no corresponding structure in terms of Cork Airport. Or any other supporting mechanisms put in there in terms of where it stands within the DEA group. And that is a fundamental issue in terms of its capacity to offer competitive rates to airlines in terms of traffic. And the other key issue is industry. I mean, the region is home to some of the biggest names in global technology in the world, from EMC to Apple and to the pharmaceutical and life sciences industry. And you know, Minister, that airline connectivity is a very important factor in terms of the connectivity or the capacity to bring foreign direct investment in. And there is huge concern about the continuing decline of the airport in terms of passenger numbers. It's a fine airport. It's international, number 1 in the world in terms of its customer relations, and has received rewards in that regard. But it does impact on FDI eventually if you do not have that international global connectivity. And that is a big, big issue of concern for people in the region, and particularly people in industry and business. And it's also important from the country's spatial planning. I mean, everyone's talking about a 2-tiered recovery, economic recovery, the sense that everything's happening in the Dublin region and very little outside of it. And if your second largest airport is now being essentially undermined and downgraded because of the structures that have been put in place, inadvertently or whatever, I don't know. I think Minister Coveney must have been asleep at the table or was considerably out-muscled by other ministers in terms of this. But the outcomes are clear. You can't argue with the outcomes in terms of what's happening on the ground, and in terms of the rates that Cork Airport offers are quite competitive across the European landscape in terms of airfare, airport charges to airlines.
Thanks, Deputy. I'm afraid we've gone way over on this issue now. I'll have to ask you to finish up,
please. In Dublin, but when you see the other airports going in the opposite direction, surely, Minister, that raises alarm bells in the department and with yourself, which do call for action.
Thanks, Deputy.
I'm sorry, do you intend to bring in a route development fund?
I'm struck by what the Deputy Martin had to say there when you described your own airport as being downgraded. I mean, that's an extraordinary statement to make about the second airport in our country that last year alone carried over 2 million passengers in and out of our country. That's the only language you've used to describe an airport. And I think in your reaction, I think what you failed to acknowledge in any way is the engagement that I have had in the matter to support this airport. I have met with both DAA and with local management within Cork Airport now on many different occasions. If I look at the different matters that you have raised, I will point to the fact that in the reply that I gave back to you, Deputy, I made the point that Tourism Ireland are working with Cork Airport to land routes. New routes have recently been landed into the airport. I have met up with the management of Cork Airport only a number of weeks ago to review with them the efforts that they have to land new routes and bring new access into the airport. I've already acknowledged to you, as I have done to many of your colleagues within the region, that I am concerned about the trend that is taking place there, that I do want to see Cork Airport grow its passenger numbers in the future for the reasons of supporting investment in the region and for the reason of supporting tourism in the area and beyond. I point to the support that we have given it in the recent past. We have now launched a new proposition, Ireland's Ancient East, to respond back to some of the points that have been made within your county, regarding the need to better support different assets within your area, different tourism assets. That is being done. A crucial reason why that has been done is to find ways to generate more demand within that region, which in turn will support this airport. And then in terms of specific support that I and state agencies are giving us, I've engaged with them directly, and Tourism Ireland are working directly with the management of Cork Airport to support them in their efforts to land new routes in what I know is a competitive environment. But the Deputy himself acknowledged that the rates that Cork Airport are offering are competitive versus many of their European peers. And in that environment, with the support that Tourism Ireland are giving them, I find no evidence whatsoever to back up your claim that this airport has been in any way downgraded.
We've actually gone way over time on this issue.
Encouraging you to do is I've engaged, as I said, continually with the airport, and whatever kind of feedback that you are getting, Deputy Martin, whatever kind of commentary, and I know it is disappointing, no doubt, for you to hear the engagement that I've had in the matter and the progress that we are making in it. And I would just urge you, Deputy, that I think it's quite striking to hear you stand up and talk about your own airport being downgraded. When you're speaking here, this is a government that has supported tourism in the way no Fianna Fáil government ever did, and has got rid of measures like the airport travel tax that your government brought in, which has now seen a huge transformation in the number of visitors coming out of our country, and a huge step change in tourism within our country. That is our track record. I have been to Cork myself. I've met people there, and the support that we have had in bringing new routes in, I'm hopeful and confident that will continue in the future.